Monday, October 17th, 2022. I am Solid Blue Sister, and this is My Turn to Talk. And I do hope everyone is having a wonderful day. And to everyone who's listening over on YouTube, Podbean, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, Spotify, wherever you get your streaming. Thank you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Hello, welcome. I know I'm a little bit late today. Hey, Mr. B, welcome. Glad you were able to make it. I'm going to invite a couple of people up in a minute, Mr. B. I will get you. I will get you. You'll be the first one. And I'm going to stop the music here, I do believe. And I'm going to get started. Okay, so today, hey, Minnesota. So today I want to talk about the slap. Okay, Mr. B, let me have you come up, but let's see. But if you could just mute yourself for just about 3 minutes. There we go. Okay, so I want to talk about the slap. Okay, if any of you guys remember, this was a mini series that came on about 10 years ago. There was an Australian version and there was a US version. Some of the actors were in both versions. The US version, in my opinion, is better than the Australian version. They get a little bit more into the weeds, but basically, it was a story, and it's also a book about this family who was having a birthday barbecue. And another child who was very unruly, had been unruly during the entire barbecue. The parents never did anything. The mother coddles the little boy like you wouldn't believe. And when they were playing a game of baseball in the U.S. version, cricket in the Australian version, the little boy who was 4 didn't want to, it wasn't his turn anymore. He starts swinging the bat and whatever, almost hits, one of the kids, and another parent goes down and picks him up and tells him, that's enough. The other parents just say, hey, what are you doing? But they never made a move to stop this child. They never made a move to say, hey, put the bat down. Never did that. So when the man put the little boy down, the little boy kicked the man, and the man slapped him. And that, led to a series of events where friends took sides. They weren't speaking to each other. There was one particular family there. That family kind of, got split between the grandparents and and the sons and what have you. And the parents of the little boy who was slapped reported the man to the police, and they went to court. So again, this was over and I was watching a little bit of it over the weekend because a friend and I, we were talking about unruly kids and parents who don't discipline their kids. And I asked her, I said, did you ever see that, that miniseries, the slap? So I was looking for it, and I watched, some of it. And again, I come back to, Is it possible to discipline someone else's child? Should you? When should you? When should you not? Are you ever crossing that line? Now, remember back in the day, um, you had other people who discipline your children. I remember getting disciplined by my neighbors, getting disciplined by my aunts and uncles and what have you. So all of a sudden, in the last, I would say, 25 years or so, actually, I'm going to say since the 80s, since we came out with this timeout, um, it turned into don't touch my child. Don't say that to my child. How dare you speak to my child like that? You should never do this to a child. They're only this, they're this, they're this. Yes, children are children. They are learning. But I guess we have to come back to say, what is discipline? So when you discipline your child, your toddler, your um, uh, child who's 7, 8, 9, is it different from the discipline that you're giving a 16-year-old, 17-year-old? I remember watching Maury Povich, remember Maury Povich show, and this mom was on there. Hey, Shelby, welcome. This mom was on there, talking about, well, I can't say anything to him because he's bigger than me, or, what am I going to do? And Maury looked at her and said, well, he wasn't always bigger than you. And to me, those are the people who end up with the FU kids, the ones whose kids turned out saying F you this, F you that, and you just stand there, they're helpless, still feeding them, still clothing them, still paying their cell phone bills. So when you go back to this miniseries, and Shelby, I was referring to the miniseries, the Slap that came out about 10 years ago. At what point is it okay to discipline someone else's child? So in my house, my rules. And to be perfectly honest with you, I ask people not to bring their children to my home. I don't want little kids in my home, because I have seen that the majority of people that I know, and some of their kids, they aren't disciplined. And my house, my rules. I'll tell you something one time. The second time, you don't want to know what's coming. Now you can say, well, that's rude. You won't do this to my child. That's why I say leave your child at home. And some adults can also stay home, because I have a problem with parents who allow their kids to do whatever. And then when someone steps in to say something, all of a sudden it's a problem. You have those parents who allow their kids to play in the street. But then when they almost get hit by a car, then it's the driver's fault for, you're going too fast, or didn't you see my child? Well, your child should be playing in the street. So with that, Mr. B, thank you for waiting patiently. If you want to say something, you have the mic.
Yes, thank you. Um, yeah, I think there's a time and a place for discipline, but in today's society, you already said it. It seems that it's very controversial. Like people are totally against it for some reason. But I think the correct way to doing it is being around people who kind of think and feel the same way you do about certain things. And
But
that
don't you think that's
way,
easier
you
said
know,
than
it make, oh yeah,
but don't you think
absolutely,
that's
it's
easier
easier.
said than done?
Yeah, I'm not saying it's easy because I have one friend who her child is a brat. I mean, he yells at her and all that stuff. And I said something to her one time. I said, "Hey, can I talk to him?" And that's all I said. I said, "Can I talk to him?" And that was it. And she couldn't yell at her son, but she had no problem yelling at me.
Okay. So when you said, could you talk to him, what did she say?
Uh, she said, "I don't need your help. I got this." And he kept on yelling, and she started talking to him and got quiet while he was still yelling at her. Then he stormed off. I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, see, and that's what, and that's the problem that I have. Welcome, Crucible, and welcome, Mama Bear Tracy. That's the problem, that I have. You guys may have heard me tell this story before, but for those who haven't, um, this must have been about 10 years ago. I was going into the market, and there was this woman who was walking in front of me with her teenage daughter. Daughter looked like she could have been about 14 or 15, and there was this other older black woman who was walking. She wasn't right next to me, but she was kind of behind me, but kind of next to me. And when we got into the store, the mother had been like mumbling something to the girl, but you couldn't really tell what was going on, but you could tell that the girl was not happy. So she says, I'll meet you back here. The mom says, I'll meet you back here in 10 minutes. I need you to go pick up some milk. And the girl turned to her mother and said, you pick up your own damn milk. I didn't want to come into the store in the first place. I looked at that girl, and then I looked at the woman next to me. She looked at me, and the mom's face turned red. And I was just like, oh, hell no, my daughter would never talk to me like that. And the black woman said, she said, if that were my daughter, and I know it's not, she would not be standing right now. My foot would be so far down her throat that they would have to call someone to get my foot out of the pavement. And I was just like, yep, whatever. And the girl was looking like, what? Whatever. But the fact that your child would say something to you like that, to me, that's not only is it disrespect, but how long has this child been doing this? So when I go back to the show that I was talking about for Crucible and Mama Bear, I know I'm gonna have to repeat this a couple of times. I'm talking about a mini series that came on about 10 years ago. Hey, Daddy Hog, called The Slap. So at what point though is it where if a child was over your house and you told them not to do something, or they were misbehaving or whatever, and the parents are just sitting there doing nothing, how many warnings do you give this child? How many times do you say, you have to go, whatever? And I also want to, for those who didn't see the miniseries, leading up to the slap, this little boy had broken the host child's Game Boy, whatever, his receiver, whatever it is that they play with. The host was very much into jazz, and the little boy got into all of his CDs and albums and was playing with them and broke some of them. He was digging up their plants in the garden. Not once did the parents say stop. When the kids were yelling at them for him breaking their toys, the mom just said, well, he's four. And then the father says, guys, just let him. And they're like, no, he broke it on purpose because we would let him have a turn. He's a brat, whatever. Isn't he going to be punished? And the mom was like, oh, just leave him alone. Don't talk to my son like this, whatever. But not once did she say, I'll replace it, which a lot of parents don't do. Not once did, as you saw after the whole slap thing happened, the grandfather's out there replanting the plants. Someone else is cleaning up the CDs and the albums, and the parents, they're just so upset. How dare you slap my child? But while the child was waving his bat, and, for everyone, they didn't get up until the child got slapped by another parent. So again, I know it's a hot topic, and Mr. B, like you said, in today's society, but society wasn't always like that. I go back to this whole timeout stuff. At what point was it where don't touch my child, don't talk to my child like that? how dare you? And I look at it like, well, how dare you? Especially if you're on my turf. So, B, you want to respond to that, or see anybody else? Everybody's just saying hi to each other. Okay, so discipline is something that you'll always have that. You'll always be split on. Some people believe in spanking children. Some people don't. Um, some people believe, it's okay to discipline another person's child. I mean, as long as you're not beating the crap out of them. Some people are like, don't touch my child. You know, um, B, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, sorry, my button was stuck. But yeah, I when I was living in Florida, I had to sign a paper that stated that the principal was allowed to spank my child if it felt like it was needed, and I feel that was okay. So I told my child, I said, "Hey, if you get in trouble at school enough to get a spanking, you want to get one at the house too."
Okay. All right. So,
So
how do you guys feel? Okay, but is
go ahead.
spanking in the classroom different from spanking if B, is spanking in the classroom different from spanking? Hold on, Cruz. I missed you there. Um, is that different from spanking? Somebody else's child. Is that different?
Well, I think discipline is discipline if it's done correctly. And discipline should be done out of love, not out of anger. But my point was the principal was never going to do it, but it was just a threat. It was just an option. She never knew that I told the principal, no, just call me. But sometimes it's just an option, sometimes, just to put that little fear factor in there sometimes.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Power Girl, Juju, and Kat. Shelby, welcome. You want to say something?
Yes. Um,
B, I'm going to mute you.
can you hear
Okay,
me?
go ahead, Shelby.
Um, Growing up at my school, we had the situation that if the um, principal called us in the office and spanked us for any reason, then yes, we did get, our discipline at home also. Um, I also wanted to say that I've lost my train of thought. Um, uh, Go ahead and let Crucibles talk so I can get my train of thought back.
All right. Crucible, Shelby's passing the mic to you, and then we'll come back to her.
Hello, Solid. Hello, everyone. Yeah, I grew up in a time where I'm a baby boomer, and I grew up at a time when, I went to a Catholic school, and we had nuns, and they were some of the no nonsense, no BS people on the planet, and they hit us regularly. They didn't bother with letters at home to our parents to say, in the event, like Mr. B just said, which I agree with him. They were probably laying out some boundaries that this is how we're going to handle these things, and I have no problem with that. But back when I was growing up, we were hit all the time. And like Mr. B said, we would come home and tell our parents, and they'd say, well, you must have done something to deserve it. There was very little marching up to the school to why did you do this to my child? So, but that was a different era. I understand that. But my personal position, I don't have children, so I'm speaking entirely anecdotally, but I was a child. I had friends as children, and my siblings have children, and now grandchildren. So I have some exposure to how kids grow up. I personally do not feel, except for a light spanking, a tap on the bottom just to get their attention, I don't believe children should ever be hit, certainly not slapped across the face or any kind of real aggressive physical behavior. Typically, and again, this is anecdotal, when you have to resort to that kind of physical force, and it is force, you've neglected to handle it other ways when you've had the opportunity. Typically, you will get their attention in other ways before you have to resort to that kind of physical violence. And yes, slapping your child is violence. That's not the same as a spanking. A slap is a slap, a spanking is a spanking. But if you've let it get to the point where the only way you can rectify that situation is by slapping your child or having another person slap them, you've been derelict in your duty, and you've missed several opportunities to handle it in a much more humane way.
Okay, I want to respond to what Crucible said. I want to go back to Shelby. Shelby, have you gathered your thoughts?
Yes. The my oldest was by a different marriage, and his mother believed that there was no spanking involved at all. And when my son was 4, he, done something similar to what the TV show was about. And like I said, I grew up in a different world. My parents disciplined me, and I was about to discipline my son, and she just point blankly yelled at me, and was telling me, "No, he's too young to spank. You don't spank him." And went over there and grabbed him up and took him away, and that was a lot of the reason why we divorced. But anyway, I just don't think that you have to discipline your children. And like Crucible said, there's a fine line between slapping and spanking. But you don't, if you miss that opportunity, they will not learn the difference between right and wrong.
Okay, I have a couple of things to push back on. First of all, did any of you all see that series, that mini series? Again, there was two versions. There was the Australian version, and there was the U.S. version. I was watching the Australian version again over the weekend. But the U.S. version is a lot better. U.S. version you have to pay for on whatever how long you're gonna pay for it. But um, uh,
I think I did, if I know what you're talking about. The guy that was running outside after the child.
well, the little boy, all of the kids were playing cricket or baseball, however you want to put it, whichever version you see. And the little brat, that's what I'm calling him, the little brat, um, he went first, and it wasn't his turn anymore. And he wouldn't give the bat to the next kid. And he started swinging the bat at the other kids where he almost hit them. He just kept violently swinging this bat. The parents and the other adults are sitting over, eating, it's a barbecue, and they're sitting there eating whatever, and the father just says, "Hugo, no." But he keeps drinking and he's not doing anything. And then the mother, she's not doing anything either. So one of the little boys that almost gets hit is the host cousin, and he runs over there and he picks up the little boy and he says, stop it right now, just stop it. And the little boy's like, no. Now again, remember, this little boy during the entire time he's at these people's houses has been disruptive. He's torn up things, he's broken things, he's been rude. The parents have done nothing. The mother coddles the little boy like it's ridiculous. So when the man puts the boy down, the 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 little boy kicks him, and the man just slaps him.
Right.
And it wasn't like, it was like, to me, when he did it, it was not something that he necessarily meant to do, but it was like
Like an adverse reaction.
Right, because this little boy almost hit his son in the head with this bat. So then after that, all the parents like, oh, no, whatever. And some parents thought that the man was right. Some parents thought that the man was wrong. And, I'm pushing back, saying that your child has been disruptive. And as you see through the rest of the miniseries, people are saying, it's coming out where nobody wants to be around this family, period.
Mm-hmm.
they don't, in fact, one guy says, I don't want you around my wife. I don't want your son playing with my kids. Stay out of our life. Your family is a train wreck, whatever.
Right.
So, so should you hit a child? I think discipline is fine. I think spanking a child is fine. I don't think that you should beat a child. Should you slap a child in the face? No. But if it's a reaction like this was, I'm, with this little boy and knowing that there are children out there that are like that, I'm like, I didn't have a problem with it.
Right.
So, and y'all are probably saying, dang, Sally, hey, GP, and welcome, Mr. A. And Mama Bear says, if anyone touches my child, Mama Bear will come out. So you better watch out. And I understand it. But at the same time, if you're that parent who is just sitting there watching, your child do all this stuff, and you're like, oh well, no, then that's when you pick your child up and you take them home, because
Right.
then your child becomes the one that nobody wants to play with or doesn't get invited. And then you're like, well, you don't invite us anywhere, or else the kid, grows up with a complex. I never got invited anywhere. Well, you were a little, no one wanted you around their house.
Your kid's a train wreck. Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you can't take the fact that somebody might, by chance, if a little child was to kick me and not thinking clearly, I would probably slap that kid too.
I mean, if my son kicked another or kicked anyone, he definitely would have heard it. Only time you're kicking somebody is if somebody's trying to abduct you, or
Right.
whatever. But when you're doing something that you're not supposed to do and you kick someone, even if he kicked one of the other little kids and the little kid turned around and socked them. So let me ask this. So this is for all of you. Is there a difference? Would it be a difference if the little boy kicked one of the other kids and one of the other kids slapped him? Is there a difference because the slap came from another child as opposed to an adult?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's different.
Why?
Because now you've got a peer group stepping in to settle the score. And I think what kids need to understand at a very early age, particularly at the peer level, not the parental level, is there are consequences for your actions, and your peers can be every bit as, if not more so, in the business of repudiation and ostracization than your parents ever could in a million years. So I think they will realize that the world will judge them. Their parents can't save them, and there will be repercussions for adverse behavior. It's an elemental concept, but it needs to be taught early. And if it's taught by a parent, it may not have the credibility that it gets when it's dished out or administered by a peer. And I think that's when kids start to pay attention, is I can't get away from this stuff with people who I used to be able to have my back. It's not acceptable, and that's where you learn where the lines are drawn.
Okay. All right. All right. Shelby, do you agree with that, or what do you think?
I still say that it's not different, because I mean, especially if it's in the same situation to where this child is swinging a baseball bat. I mean, if it was me being a child and this child was swinging a baseball bat at me, I would, please stop, please stop, please stop. And if you get to like the fourth or fifth, please stop, and this kid is still swinging a baseball bat, I would first go tell the parent. And if the parent's not going to do anything, and then I catch that kid not swinging the baseball bat, I would take the baseball bat away. What is that child going to do? It's going to kick me.
Okay.
So then, my adverse reaction is going to be to slap you back.
Okay. All right. Now, Mr. A says if your kid hits my kid, they will get hit back. But Mr. A, I'm talking about if your kid is the aggressor, your kid is the little brat, and your kid is getting hit because they are hitting and being the aggressor with somebody else's kid, I'm sorry. So, everybody wants to defend, if you hit my child, you do this. But what if your kid is the aggressor? What if your kid is the little brat? What if your kid is the one who is going around hitting people, kicking people, breaking things, whatever, and then all of a sudden, because people just get to their point where you tell people, and I have done it with adults, stop, and then when they keep doing it, and then when you turn around, or you just lose it and say, I told you, would you just stop? Then people get mad. But it's like, but you told them. So yes, they are a child, but especially if the parent is sitting there, you're sitting there, and you're one of those parents who doesn't do anything because you think that your child is cute, or oh, they're only 7, or they're only 4, or what. But okay, fine, be a parent and discipline your child. Control, I guess I should say, control your child. So you know, I, hey, shy lady. So, I mean, Shelby.
I want to go back to something that you had said earlier, um, about, you know, talking about how you, um, not allowing children to come to your house.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I in that situation, that if they, bring their child to the house and they're destructive, I have been in that situation, and this was before I had children. And I would just, I've had one time just come up with the excuse, oh my gosh, I need to run to Walmart before my husband comes home. I'm so sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to leave so I can go to Walmart.
See, Shelby, you're being nice, because I have actually told someone that their child was not welcome in my house anymore. When my son was, before he was homeschooled, he used to play with this one little girl, very very sweet, very very sweet. But her sister was like Satan. Okay. And again, this is where I say that you can grow up in the same house, have the same parents, whatever. One kid turns out one way, the other kid turns out another way. This little girl, she was the younger sister. This little girl was, I mean, I swear she was a spawn of Satan. And when her mom came to pick up my son's friend, um, I told her, I said, I will meet you at the door. But they but she said that her other daughter, the Satan child, had to use the washroom. I'm like, great. I did
Yeah.
not, I did not want this little girl in my house. So I come in, uh, they use the washroom. I'm standing at the door, like, okay, let's leave. She was, it was so nice to have her. Blah 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 blah. Other little Satan child starts running around the house.
Oh
Now,
Lord.
my husband was home, and he's looking at this, and he's giving me this look. And my son is like looking at this little girl like, Mom, look at what she's doing. And the mother just kind of stood there, not saying anything. So I started saying, you need to come over here, stand by your mom. No, I want to play. So she runs upstairs, goes into, at the time, which was my son's playroom. She's pulling out stuff. My son runs upstairs. Mom, she's breaking whatever. I mean, she was like this little boy. So I go
Hmm.
upstairs. I said, go downstairs right now. I didn't touch her, didn't do anything, and she says no. Her mom comes up, oh, come on, honey. You have to, no, no, no. I mean, she's doing all this other stuff. So I said, you need to go downstairs right now or else. And my girlfriend looked at me. She says, or else what? I said, you don't want to know. And the little girl looked at me, and she went downstairs. So she's standing in the kitchen, and she looks at me, and she says, Miss, she called me by my first name. All the little kids used to call me by my first name, Miss whatever. This little girl spread her legs, stood there, and peed on my kitchen floor. I kid you not. My husband lost it. He
Well, I would
lost it.
too.
And I looked at that little girl and I said, clean it up. And the mother's like, oh, do you have any paper towels? Oh, I said, no, I want her to clean it up. Now, little girl was like 6.
Oh yeah, she'd be cleaning
And
it.
so she and her mother are down, and the little girl is looking at me with this look on her face like, nah, 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 whatever. So after they cleaned it up, I said, you need to put some Clorox down. I have some up under the sink. And she looked at me and she got some Clorox and she put it down. And Shy Lady, I miss you there. And I of course I had to mop the floor and everything after they left. But when they left, I said, daughter
I'd
number
still make
one
that girl.
is,
I'd still make that girl mop.
I said, daughter number one is more than welcome to come back. That little girl she came back many times. I said, but this one is not welcome in my house. Don't even take her out of the car. If you're not able to pick her up, I will bring daughter number one home. But she is not welcome in my house. And I will tell you, I'm not going to make up an excuse or anything. I'm going to tell you, your child is not welcome in my house. Because if you are, I mean, seriously, if my son did that, first of all, he wouldn't do it because he knows better. And I guess that's where the word y'all have heard, home training, comes in.
Right.
But like I said, you have 2 kids, same parents, grew up in the same household. One turns out this way, the other one turns out this way. Now, after my son was homeschooled, my son still, he still saw his friend, whatever. Come to find out, when the little one got into high school, she still, is acting like a brat, and she ended up getting beat up. Some girls beat her up, saying, you need to watch your mouth and who are you talking to, whatever. She got beat up. And guess what? She didn't do it anymore. She wasn't like that. She changed. But it never should have gotten to that point.
Right.
So, and then Miss Dre said, my kids know better. I'll smack them before you get a chance. Please, please do. GP says, solid, every child deserves parents, but not every parent deserves a child. You're right. So, Crucible, I'm gonna jump over to Shy Lady, and then I'll come back over to you. Hey, Shy Lady, welcome.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Hope everybody's doing well. I apologize in advance in case the call drops because I'm driving and sometimes this area in call drops. But anyway, I was going to ask you if you were still friends with the mother, but I think you kind of confirmed that you still in contact with the mother or whatever. But I
I
want
am
to add
still in.
that.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I wanted to add that I never really had a situation where, well, except for one parent. I think I told you about them a while back. I couldn't stand their kids, but the problem with that, the parents are still together, and the youngest child that I couldn't stand the most is he's 15 now, but he grew up to be a much better person than when he was a child because his mother spoiled him like crazy. I mean, he's the youngest child. He had an older sister, and she favored the little boy much more than the daughter, and the father allowed it. So I think a lot of this behavior, I think, is a tribute. I know some kids have their own personalities, but I think the parents are to blame for a lot of these kids misbehaving. I just blame the parents. But I've never had. He was the only person that I really could not stand as a child because his parents didn't discipline him. And there were times when I wanted to say, don't bring him, keep him at home. But I knew that she was the problem. But I never really got to that point. But trust me, I wanted to go there because he would break toys and hit my son in the head, just throw something and hit him in the head, just stupid stuff like that. And I was like, I was livid when that happened. And he was like 5 years old, and they didn't even discipline him.
But see, Shirley, that is where I say I understand what you're saying, where the problem was her, but for your child to come into my home and breaking my child's toys, um, hitting my child, whatever. I'm sorry. I'm going to say something. Your child is not welcome in my home. And if she needs to know why, well, okay, well, let's see. Let's take a look. I mean, I'm sorry. I think that you need to call people out. You need to call them out. We call out each other, but nobody, but you don't want to, call out somebody else's child, or even call out your own child. I mean, I would give my son that look. But my son, I didn't have a problem when we went out. I mean, people will always tell me how nice my son was, whatever. I'm like, yeah, y'all don't see him sometimes when we get home. But he knew how to behave. He knew, it was yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. It was, may I, whatever. He was respectful, and other children that he played with, some of them were, some of them weren't, But again, when I was growing up, you were respectful. If you come into my house and my son has company, they speak to me and my husband first. You just don't come walk in my house and you just go, and start hanging out with my son. You don't do that. Because when I was growing up and I went over other people's houses, it was, hi, Mrs. So and so, hi, Mr. So and so. You greet the person's home you're going into, and you show them their respect, and then you go off and play or whatever. So I'm sorry, Shy Lady. No,
I'm old school too. I mean, the same with me. I taught my kids to respect adults and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people that don't raise their kids like that. I see them in the stores pleading with them, please, can we go now? Please. I mean, 6 years old. It's like, really? Are you serious? No, no, no. I can't get that right now. Well, let me explain. Explain what? It's like, he's 6. It's no. And let's go. I don't
yeah,
get it. I just don't get it. But
yeah. But
anyhow,
you have parents that are like that. So, Crucible. Thank you for waiting patiently.
Yeah, I agree with parts of what both of you guys are saying, and the thing that people sometimes forget or overlook, maybe they don't forget it because it's obvious, but overlook it, is up until you're about 5 or 6 years old, there are no external influences on your children. You have them exclusively. You have them to shape and to mold and to mentor and to encourage. There's no other voices in their heads. So by the time they're 5 or 6, if you have not laid out clearly to them what the rules are, right and wrong, and what the consequences are, you have failed them, and you're going to have to clean it up later. But a lot of things that people also misread is how perceptive kids are. And kids will push the boundaries. Again, I've not had kids, but I've seen it in action. They will push the boundaries and test you. And they will test you and test you until they figure out where your soft spots are. That's where Shy Lady's point is very valid. Can we go home now? They're given control they haven't earned or deserve. And you're abdicating one of the most fundamental and important responsibilities of your lifetime by allowing children to read the room and say, I know where my parents are vulnerable. And there's a permissiveness that they pick up on and they exploit. So unless you're putting the hammer down at a very early age and communicating with your children, this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and this is what happens when you don't follow the rules. There will be consequences, and they'll get those consequences, and they'll look at you and they'll say, yes, you were right. And last thing, real quick, solid, we were in the same boat. When we were kids, this was back before cell phones. The phone was nailed to the wall, and we'd be goofing around doing God knows what, and all she'd have to do is give us that look, and man, we scattered and we wouldn't say another word for the rest of the afternoon. All it took was a look, because we knew what was coming if we didn't clean up our act. So a little communication and a little discipline goes a long way, because kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for.
Yeah, they are. And Mr. A says, I have that problem with my daughter's friends. You greet the parents at the home you walk into. That's in every home. I wouldn't have that problem because I would tell those kids right from the get go. If you cannot speak to me and my husband when or if he's home or whatever, before you come in, and then say goodbye to us when you leave, don't come back. Simple. So that would not be a problem with me. And when my sister and I, when we used to go shopping with my mother, before we got out of the car, my mother would say, "We're about to go into the store. You better behave. If you don't," and she didn't even have to finish the sentence because my sister and I knew. And when we got into the store, yes, we got a chance to, go to the toy store or to the toy department. Back then when parents would leave their kids in the toy department, a lot of things we didn't have our car seats, all the other stuff, but we got a chance to do things, whatever. But again, it was like, if we're about to do this, you know how to behave, and that's it. I think it's ridiculous. You see parents who are dragging their kids down the aisle. You know, their kids are yelling and screaming and crying. It's like, what? What is going on here? And then the parents look like, oh my God, I just want to get home. No, 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 no. You should not look like that at all. No. But again, you see these parents that are dragging their kids, or their kids are talking to them however they want, and like Maury Povich said, if any of y'all remember the Maury Povich show, like he told that one woman, when she said, well, my son is bigger than me. He wasn't always bigger than you. Some people will turn out to have FU kids, and some people won't, but again, because I'm going to be wrapping it up pretty soon, but at what point, if a child comes into your home, at what point is it over the line to discipline someone else's child? And I'm not even saying hitting them. I'm saying whether you reprimand them, whether you yell at them, whatever, especially if your child is in the wrong. If your child is doing something that your child is not supposed to be doing and you know it, and you're sitting there and you don't say anything, or at what point does the homeowner have the right to say something to your child? Either say something, or in the case of the slap, um and it's an interesting show because in the entire 8 episodes, it just really showed how that slap broke up friendships. It almost destroyed a family. um you know because people took sides over this one little boy who was just horrible, and parents who didn't know how to parent. So, Shelby, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about, when, like, if my child was left in someone else's care. um I had some children come stay the night for a birthday party. One child stayed. Let me rephrase that. One child stayed, and I have insomnia, so I don't sleep. And I happened to have gotten up to check on the kids to make sure that they, were asleep and nobody needed anything. Well, they slept in the living room, or were in the living room, and I happened to go in there to get some water, and uh, there was no children in the living room except for my oldest girl. And she was dead asleep. So I happened to look out the window, and they were all at the trampoline. And so I went out there and I got them in, and I gave them a lecture. You're in my care. If something was to happen to you, that would be on me. What do you think would happen to me if something was to happen to you? I mean, I know these parents. These parents are mean. They would probably sue me. And I just think that some children just don't think of it that way. They're just like, well, here, let's go out here. and they just don't think of the consequences that parents would go through knowing that you're in their care.
You bring up some good points, Shelby, and I want to speak to those. Let me get through the comments. I'm sorry, guys. I'm being really bad with the comments today. GP says, no wonder so many kids have problems with the law before being 18. Mr. A says, oh, yeah, I definitely call them out now. Most of them know how to say hi. Dose says, I make all parents sign a waiver saying their kids will be slapped upside the head if they get out of line. I call it the effed around and found out waiver. Okay. Thank you, Frankie, for the gift. And everyone, thank you for liking the show. Okay, so Shelby brings up a good point. Your child is misbehaving. Your child is in my care. Hey, crazy lady, your child is in my care. Your child is misbehaving. Your child gets into something that they should not, and they know better. Now the parents want to sue. That gets real dicey. What do you guys think about that? Now all of a sudden, and once again in this TV show, when the woman called the police, whatever, because they went to court and what have you. What do you think about that? What do you think about now? Parents want to call the police, they want to sue you, whatever. But again, your child was the one who consistently didn't listen, got into something, broke something, got hurt, whatever. But now you want to sue me. And crazy lady just coming in, she's like, oh, hell no. So, Shelby, you want to speak to that, and then I'll go to Crucible, or
I just, I'm real apprehensive about things these days. Especially when my kids were, at that age when they had, their friends come over, and I just, and I explained to the parents, before I took the child, I'm like, I'm going to treat them as if they were my own. If they do things that are wrong, I'm going to discipline them. I'm not going to say that I'll spank them. They will probably get a preaching to.
okay, all right. Now, Crazy Lady says the saying a village raises a child, and then Crucible says, but Crazy Lady, the village is nuts. And Crazy Lady responds back, of that child left in my care, I would treat that child like my own. In the story. Okay, Crucible.
Not everything, obviously, these days is lawsuit worthy. We live in a very litigious society, and you can't stop somebody from suing you. If they want to sue you over something frivolous, they're going to do it. There are plenty of attorneys out there that'll take these things, but that's crossing the line. Children are still children, no matter how unruly they can be. Just because your kid did something to another kid doesn't mean you should file a lawsuit. That strikes me as way over the line.
Okay, let me ask this, Crucible. Is it ever something where if your child hit another child with a baseball bat and seriously injured him, is that lawsuit worthy?
I would say yes, that is lawsuit worthy. That's
So
a different.
so there are cases.
Thank you for clarifying. Yes, there are cases. Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Okay. Shy lady, you still there?
Hey, I'm sorry, I'm still
Okay.
here in the store shopping. Did you want me to
Now, I mean, if you wanted to respond to the lawsuit thing or anything else that we were talking about since you had the mic. Okay, she is driving. So, Shy lady, I will come back to you. Crazy lady.
This is the way I view it. If I trust you enough to leave my child in your care, and my child misbehaves, beat the child. I would. I'm not like you know what I mean when I say beat the child. I don't beat them, but discipline them. And everyone knows, if you bring your child into my house, check it out. It's my rules. It's my, and if you trust me enough to leave your child in my care, then you got to be, you then obviously you trust me enough to, handle if anything comes up that needs to be addressed. End of story. And if I do something, you're going to seem like if I smack your kid because whatever reason. Well, actually, I did. A friend of Alex's, and I watched that kid like a lot. Had a potty mouth, and he knew better. I stuck a bar soap in him. He went home, complained to his mom, and his mom was like, "Well, I guess you shouldn't cuss at her house then, huh?" But I mean, if she sued me, I'd be like, oh, "Go ahead, sue. We're gonna get a whole lot of nothing." And that's just being petty. That person's gonna be petty, regardless of what happens in the world. You know what I mean?
Okay. All right. So, do you guys think that we should go back to the old school ways where, someone else did discipline someone else's child? Or do you think we should stick to the "you better not touch my child" thing? I mean, and again, I'm going to where I say your child is the issue. Your child is the problem. And do you guys believe that most people know that their children are the problem? Welcome, Chris. So
No, I don't think that most people think that their children are the problem. Parents, lots of them anyway, have gigantic blind spots by design. My child can't do anything wrong. But to answer your original question, should we go back to the old ways of allowing other parents to not just discipline our children, but to hit them? No, I've never been a fan of that at all. I don't think it's their place to discipline other people's children. You take that up with the parent, and that's how you resolve it. If it doesn't get resolved, then you take other measures. But putting your hands on another child, I just don't believe is ever acceptable.
I'm going to respond to that. For Crazy Lady, go ahead.
I'm thinking, how could they not know? I mean, if your kid's a shit in public, I can guarantee you they're, excuse my language, they're a little turd at home. How could they not know?
Because I think some parents choose not to know. They choose to look the other way. But I think most parents know how their children are. And Crucible, to your point, again, if you're in my house, my rules. And I'm only going to tell you something once, and I'm going to say it in a way where you better get it through your head. But if you are willfully breaking things, willfully messing with things that you should not, willfully, hitting my child, breaking his toys, whatever, we're going to have a serious problem, especially if you, the parent, are sitting there. We are going to have a problem. I don't necessarily believe in, if you hit me, I'm not going to tell my child to hit you back. I'm not going to do that. You hit me, you're going to be dealing with me. I may not hit you. Well, oh yeah, you will still get a big dose of something where your child will feel 2 feet tall. So again, my house, my rules, if you cannot bring your child into my home and behave, and you know that your child cannot behave, don't come, because I will more than likely tell you that you're not welcome anyway. And I have no problem telling people that. So, Crucible, you want to push back on me or agree or whatever?
No, you at all with how you choose to be active in that in that situation, and you just kind of clarified you wouldn't put your hands on them, but they must be dealt with. Whether the child is dealt with directly by you, I have no problem with the parents, with another parent having very, very strong words for another child. You don't have to hit them to discipline them, but I would take it up with the parent. It's their responsibility. But Crazy Lady made a really interesting point that I kind of did not really think about as far as potty mouths. Kids with potty mouth, that's really the precursor to bad behavior. If you let children, that's a very slippery slope, and she made a good valid observation. If you let them get away with bad words and swear words and whatnot at a young age without reprimanding them, you're opening the door to a life or at least a near-term situation of very little or no discipline. And again, kids are smart. They realize where the lines are drawn. And if you let them get away with swear words, you're going to have problems down the road.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but a lot of people think it's funny. A lot of people think it's cute that, when your child is, 6, that, that they're saying F you. I mean, it isn't cute. It really isn't. But some people think that's cute. But more than anything, I think a lot of these children end up, again, like I said, I don't think there's anything wrong with spanking your own child. If I was ever pushed to it, like seriously pushed, more than being kicked, like on this TV show. But if I was seriously pushed to it and I hit someone else's child, I I don't think I would feel bad. Um, you know, um, these are kids also, like I told you, this one little girl that came over when she went to high school, she ended up getting beat up because she had a mouth and she talked back to the wrong, group of girls and they jumped her. So is your child also going to either grow up to be a bully, be a pariah where nobody wants to be around them, or are they going to end up getting beat up? Or are they going to be the person who, and I, you know, end up where another kid, you know, comes back with more than a baseball bat to deal with your child who has turned into a bully? So what do you do? And I know that when you're talking about other people's children, it's like, well, again, you better not touch my kid. You better not, you better not touch my kid. But you also know, thank you, Shy Lady, for popping in. But you also have to know that uh, you you know your kids just can't come into your home or go anywhere and go into a restaurant, whatever. You see kids in restaurants that are just absolutely horrible. Nobody. I mean, I'm trying to eat my meal. I'm paying for meal. I'm paying for my meal. I shouldn't have to deal with this. Crazy Lady says, my son, as an adult, apologized to me when he cursed in front of me. Lady is saying goodbye to everyone. Chris says, children's behavior is a reflection of how they are being raised in most cases or shows non-involvement of the parents. Chris also says, parents shoving smartphones in kids' faces as a baby for entertainment. Chris, I was talking about that on a show last week about parents who give their kids those phones. Give them a book. Give them some crayons and some paper. I mean, it's ridiculous. So Crazy Lady says, yes, letting tech entertain. So well, I am going to wrap it up, guys. I'm keeping my show to an hour. I'll start with Crazy Lady. Do you have any words that you want to leave with us?
It's definitely a different world than from when we were growing up, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm a firm believer that technology, like showing those tablets and smartphones in toddlers' hands, is a big reason of why things are like falling apart. I truly believe that.
Okay. All right. Crucible.
Yeah, I think if parents look more at their situation when their kids are born, like I said a little earlier, they've got about a 5-year window that they're the sole influencers of their children's lives. And there's that old saying, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. You think of your kids as a ball of clay. You can shape it, you can mold it, you can put it into almost anything you want to because you're the only one working that clay. Or if you want to go to another artistic reference, a canvas that's blank, and you are the only person who has input into that. That's a powerful, powerful responsibility. But there's another old metaphor that says you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And that applies not only practically, but metaphorically. Once you've gotten to a certain point, I'm not saying you can't fix the problem. You've just created so many obstacles for you and your child that could have been resolved a little early on. So it's important to know the power that parents have in the beginning and not to squander it. But anyway, great show, great topic, Solid. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Crucible. And Chris says, Shelby, I'm going to come to you. I want to read what Chris says. He says, I was home when street lights came on as a kid. No need for government to enforce a curfew for teens. That shows you a difference in generations. Chris, I had to be in the house when the street lights came on. Then I had to ask for permission to go back out, and I could not go further than the front porch. And if any of you guys are familiar with the comedian Sinbad, there is a YouTube video out there that is one of the funniest ones. Very, very funny. His parents were usually in the audience whenever he did his stand up, and he was talking about having to be in the house by the time the street lights came on, and how he was like diving on the front porch because his mother was standing there, with the bell. Very, very funny, but at the same time, have your butt home. I shouldn't have to go look for you, and you should not be out all night long. So yes, Chris, I do remember those days. So you guys, again, that is Sinbad the comedian. Shelby, you have the last word, unless somebody says something else.
I just think that, we just need to, I don't want to say think before we react, but, we just need to be more cautious about how we approach situations in that instance. But, if it's a situation to where the kid is a devil and they're a known devil, just use your own judgment if you want to try to let them in your home or, in your presence.
Okay. All right. And Shelby, see, I didn't even pick on you today. See, so, I did not pick on Shelby today. Crazy Lane says, "Oh no, people do need to think before they act." Yes, they do. Crazy Lane, you want to say something else?
No,
Oh, okay.
I'm good.
Okay, no. Okay, yeah. Okay. So, and everyone, again, if you guys are interested in this mini series, it's the Australian version that is on Freevee, FREEV as in Victor EE. That is that's 8 episodes. The US version, which I think is a lot better, same thing. And again, some of the same people are in both in both series. Is 8 episodes, but that one you have to pay for. But it is on Freevee now, and the slap does happen in the first episode. Towards the end, you see what leads up to it, and then the rest of the show, and then the part where they go to court. That's another thing that's different between the Australian version and the US version is they really kind of changed it somewhat. But the mom of the brat is the same woman that plays the role, whatever. But it's an interesting watch because again, it's like, should an adult hit a child? So if you guys are interested, and again, with the Sinbad that is on YouTube, all you have to do is put in Sinbad stand up street lights. I do believe that's it, and then that should the whole thing should come up. But other than that, guys, thank you guys for coming. I do appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoy your day or evening wherever you are in the world. I hope to see you tomorrow. Go where the wind takes you, and thank you so much for stopping by. Bye. And for everyone else listening over on any streaming app, I am streaming everywhere now. So wherever you are listening to it, thank you. Crucible, the only crazy lady, Mr. V, Shy Lady, and Shelby, thank you for popping on the panel. And everyone else, thank you for participating. in the chat and liking the show. Let's see. Frankie, thank you for the gift. Juju, Mr. A, Power Girl, Daddy Hawk, Shelby, Minnesota. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you, thank you. Chris Unplugged. All of you. Mama Bear was here. Mama Bear. So thank you all. GP was here. But you guys are much appreciated. And with that note, I'm going to say bye.